Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail, the realm where the shadows whisper ancient secrets and nightmares come to life. I am your guide through the darkness, and on this channel, we delve into the spine-chilling world of Wendigo horror stories that will send shivers down your spine. First story. Dark Web. Good afternoon, Malcolm. Hi, Ms. Jackson. Staring out from under my hood, I looked at the computer screen in front of me. Ms. Jackson is the head librarian, and she likes to make the rounds and see how the library patrons are doing. My backside is beginning to get sore from sitting on the hard chair for so long. I wish they would get some chairs with cushions, but I guess I could always buy a cushion of my own. Sitting in my usual spot, back in the far corner, away from the main traffic among the stacks, my fingers fly over the keyboard, slipping from website to website. Coming to the library is the only refuge I get from the chaos that reigns at home. Mom's new boyfriend is a complete jackass and is always opening his mouth and criticizing me at every turn. He's also slightly abusive to her. There's no hitting or anything like that, but he isn't soft with his words toward her. I wish she would just kick his ass to the curb, but she just can't find the strength to not have a man in her life. The library is quiet this afternoon. The staff has grown used to me, and the free internet connection allows me to do my homework and surf the web at the same time. One of the things I like about the library in this small town is they don't have a lot of money or know how to create a really secure internet. I am able to go to websites I probably never would be able to in a larger, more modern, and secure location. I found I can even log into the web using a VPN, a private server that masks my activities and identity from any prying eyes. Not that I'm doing anything illegal, but I do like poking around in the dark web, and that was one place I don't want anyone knowing about my involvement. I stay far away from the drug websites, the human trafficking sites, and the murder-for-hire sites. I have no use for those kinds of sites. Though getting rid of my mother's boyfriend would be a good use of an assassin, but she would just cry about his death, and then she'd find herself another guy, probably one worse than this clown. Maybe I could have him trafficked out of the country? No, better to just leave him alone. I'm doing a search in the tier search engine, looking for websites that deal with inventions that haven't been made public. Most of these inventions are things the government would swoop in and shut down if they got wind of them, or confiscate them. Other than that, they are pretty harmless. Like some kid trying to build a nuclear reactor in his bedroom, or some guy trying to figure out how to build a time machine. The kid has absolutely no source for the fuel for his reactor, and the other guy doesn't want to accept that time travel is against all laws of physics. But it is fun to read. I put in a search for time travel experiments and notice a link to a site that looks out of place. It appears to be a news site, not the usual thing you would see on the dark web. The part that caught my eye was the date under the link. It was 3 days from now. Obviously, it was a mistake by the site. I'm not sure why, but I clicked on the link and waited for the site to open. When it did, it looked like a text version of a regular news site, but from a news source I'd never heard of. Most of the stories were pretty ordinary, and the dates under their headlines appeared to be correct, with today's date. But the story which showed up in the search engine snippet had that same date about 3 days in the future. That wasn't the only thing that I found intriguing. The story was about a woman that had been killed in her apartment, but the police were saying it wasn't an ordinary murder. It seemed as if a wild animal had gotten into her apartment and torn her to pieces. The story even had the day and dates wrong. It said the murder had occurred last night, Saturday. Today is only Wednesday. I looked at the story again, figuring that it had happened last weekend, but I hadn't heard anything about a murder like this in the past few days. If something like this had happened in this small city, the news wouldn't have escaped my ears. I read the story again and then began to think someone was playing an elaborate hoax. It was the only explanation, but why someone would hoax a story like that was amazing to me. Some people can play some pretty sick jokes, and this appeared to be one of them. I looked at my phone and saw that I had less than an hour before the library closed, and I wanted to get my math homework finished before I go home. There was no way I'd be able to get it finished at home. Sunday morning came bright and early with the buzzing of my phone on my bedside table. It was only 7 in the morning and I had no reason to get up. So, whoever was calling me and disturbing my lazy Sunday morning was going to get an earful. I look through my half-closed eyes at the display and see it's Jackie. Why she would be calling me this early on a Sunday was a mystery. "Hello." I grunted into the phone. "Mal, wake up, man. You remember that story you told me a couple of days ago?" "What?" I said, still trying to shake the sleep from my head. "What story?" "The one about the woman that got killed here in town and looked like a wild animal had done it." "Oh, yeah," I said as I rolled onto my back. "Mal, she's dead. Just like you said." Sleep evaporated from my eyes instantly as I sat up in bed. "What do you mean she's dead?" "Just like you described it. Some woman who lives about 3 blocks from your house." "Oh shit. You haven't told anyone what I told you, have you? Someone like your dad?" "No, Mal." "Why?" "Because if the police found out I knew about this before it even happened, they would be looking very closely at me as a suspect." I heard Jackie giggle on the other end of the call. "You didn't kill her, did you?" "Good God, no. What kind of person do you think I am? I'm just yanking your chain. Hey, I'm going to have to call you back. I need to find a paper or watch the news." "Okay, call me later." After logging on, I go to the website for the local newspaper and the main story is about the murder, and even though I don't have the dark web story in front of me, I'm pretty sure it's the same story, word for word. It's Sunday and the library is closed. I have no other place to log into the dark web and can't chance it here at the house. The best I'm going to be able to do is get up early tomorrow and get to the library when they open. I'll have about an hour before I must leave and head for school. Reading through the story again, it is so surreal to me. How could I possibly see a story about a murder that wasn't going to occur until 3 days later? The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, telling me the answers to that question were probably best left alone. Monday morning couldn't come soon enough for me, and now I'm sitting in my usual spot, in the dark, back corner of the library. But I'm not alone this time. Jackie is sitting in a chair next to me, watching as I log into the dark web and begin moving toward the news site I'd seen a few days earlier. Before I pull the site up, I look at her and ask, "You sure you want to see this?" "Yes. It's probably going to be nothing. What are the chances there will be another story about something happening in the future?" She had a point. I clicked the link and the same news site opened. The third headline dealt with the murder, but now it was current or even past news. It happened a couple of days ago, so it was moving down on the front page in order of importance. I was about to click on the story link to see if anything had changed in the story, but Jackie gasped, and this made me look. The top story was dated for Wednesday night. This coming Wednesday, not last week. The headline read, "Serial Killer Strikes Again." One thing I did not want to do was click the link, but it was clear I had to. My fingers trembled as I moved the mouse to the link and was about to press the button, but Jackie reached over and put her hand on mine. "Do we really want to see this?" she asked. I pulled my hand away from the mouse and looked at her. "I don't know, Jackie. The other day I thought this was just a joke or hoax, but now, obviously, it's not. But what could it be?" I just shook my head. I had no idea what we were looking at. "Maybe the killer works at this news site," she said, "and they're planting the stories." That might be true, but I can't believe I'm the only one seeing these stories. There must be a lot of other people seeing this, and someone would call the cops. This is the dark web, Mal. Some of the sick people that slither around in here live for this kind of thing. Like me. I didn't mean you. I know, and you're right. There are a lot of people moving around in the dark web I wouldn't want to know in real life. She looked back at the screen and shook her head. "We have to look at it." "Are you sure?" I asked. "Yes, though it scares me." "Me, too," I said as I clicked the link. The story opened and we began reading. It told of an old man living by himself in the eastern part of the city that was attacked and killed in his home. Much like the other murder, he had been torn apart just like the woman had been. The police had no leads, and now the city was terrified that some new serial killer was on the loose. Look there, just under the headline. I looked and it said that the story had been viewed by over 100 subscribers. That answered the question of whether we were the only ones that knew of this. We have to tell someone about this, she said. But who? Anyone we tell will just think we're crazy. You're forgetting the most obvious person to tell. It only took me a second to realize who she was talking about. I almost felt like slapping myself upside the head when it dawned on me. She pulled her phone from her purse and dialed, switched it to speaker mode, but turned it down so we were the only ones who could hear it. Smithville Police Department. How may I direct your call? I need to speak to Detective Miller. Hold, please. This is Detective Miller. Daddy, it's Jackie. Hey, what's up, Pumpkin? I need you to come to the library. Mal and I have something you need to see. I guess he could tell from her voice this was something serious because all he said was that he'd be right there. It only took him 10 minutes to get there because the library is only a couple of blocks from the police station. I think he even walked here. When he found us in the back of the library, he pulled up a chair and asked, "What's up, kiddos?" Jackie pointed at the screen, and he leaned in to read the story. "Is this some kind of joke?" "Sir," I said, "I wish it was. You noticed the date, right?" "Yeah, a couple of days from now." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his smartphone and took a picture of the screen and then made sure to zoom in on the name of the victim and his address. "I don't know what this is, but I intend to find out," he said. "Sounds like someone is playing a joke here, and because of what happened to that woman the other night, I don't like it." "Tell him, Mal," said Jackie. He looked at his daughter and then at me. "Tell me what?" I swallowed my fear, not because I felt cornered, but because I could see he thought this was still a joke, and I didn't want him leaving and not taking it seriously. "Sir, that woman that died the other night. I read a story just like this last Wednesday." "You did? You read a story like this 3 days before she was killed?" "Yes, sir, and I thought it was a joke, too. Until I saw the news yesterday and realized it wasn't." I lowered my head and looked at the floor. I realized if I had said something earlier, that woman might still be alive. "I could have saved her," I said softly. I felt her dad's hand on my shoulder, and he squeezed it. "You did nothing wrong here, Malcolm. How could you know it was real? But now I need to figure out a way to keep this man safe and catch the bastard who's doing this." He stood up and leaned over and kissed Jackie on the cheek. "Be safe, young lady. I'm going to work." "Okay, Daddy. Catch this person." "You know I will." We watched as he walked away and turned around one of the stacks and was gone. Jackie looked at her phone and said, "I hate to say this, but we have to go or we'll be late for school." "School? Who could possibly think about school right now?" I packed my laptop into my bag and we left the library. When we reached the bottom of the steps in front of the library, we could see her dad walking quickly toward the station. Jackie snaked her arm through mine and said, "Come on, he'll catch the killer, but we still need to go to school." I don't think I have ever experienced a day in school that felt longer than this one. Or the next day. Wednesday came and went. Jackie's dad got to the victim's house early in the afternoon and hid himself in one of the back bedrooms. Unmarked police cars were less than a minute away. Around 8 in the evening, the detective heard some glass breaking in the bedroom next to where he was, and he waited until he heard someone come out of the room and start down the hallway. Whoever it was, they were trying to move as quietly as possible, and when they passed the other bedroom, heading for the living room, Jackie's dad slipped out of his hiding spot and followed the guy. When he stepped up behind the killer, he pressed his gun against the back of the guy's head and told him it was over and not to bother looking for the old man because he hadn't been in the house for hours. This guy had come to the house fully prepared to do what he had planned. He had a backpack full of knives and cleavers. He was dressed in black from head to toe, including the standard black ski mask that bad guys like to wear. When he felt the gun against the back of his head, the guy started laughing and said, "You really think this is over? It's just getting started." Jackie's dad called in the backup, and within a minute they had the guy down and handcuffed, ready to take away. When they pulled the ski mask off his face, they saw he was just some punk they had dealt with before. He liked to cause minor mayhem, but nothing that came anywhere close to murder. The whole time they were dealing with him, from when they cuffed until they stuffed him in the back of the patrol car, he never stopped laughing. Where was I during all this? Right now, I'm sitting in the library, watching the computer screen. I want to see the story change or disappear altogether. Jackie is at home, praying like she always does, for her daddy to make it home safe. For some reason, tonight she felt the need to put in some extra time asking heaven for a favor. My phone chimed, and it's a text message from her dad saying they caught the guy and it was over. Breathing a sigh of relief, I sat back in the chair and rubbed my eyes. Thank God. As I sat there with my eyes closed, I heard a chime from my laptop. There was a text box in the middle of the screen. Do you really think it would be that easy to catch me? You should have just sat back and watched like all the others here. But you decided to do more than watch. Well, watch this. As I watched, the story on the screen began to change. Word by word, sentence by sentence, the story rewrote itself. No longer did it have anything to do with the old man and his murder. When it finished changing, I was horrified at what I saw. I snatched up my phone and dialed the detective's number and almost felt like screaming with each ring. Finally, after a few seconds, he answered. Hey Malcolm, thanks for helping us. Sir, the story changed. What does it say now? Sir, it's Jackie. Second story. I got an innocent family killed through the dark web. It all started a month ago as my family and I were preparing to go on holiday overseas. My Galaxy S7 Edge was playing up on me, so I decided to turn it off and reboot it. I held down the power button and I was brought to the Galaxy S7 Edge boot logo. It stayed there and wouldn't boot up. I plugged it into my computer to realize that the OS had corrupted and I needed to do a fresh install. This was impossible to do as we had to leave for a plane 3 hours away from us. I had to put up with using my sister's old iPhone 5C for the holiday. Since I didn't want to be charged for overseas usage with my phone provider, I decided to leave my SIM card in my Galaxy S7. Progressing through my holiday, and we got to a period where there was horrible weather and we couldn't do much. I was stuck in my room bored absolutely shitless, so I decided to start talking to my friends. I used my iPad to talk to my friends as I had the applications pre-installed and the internet sucked to download shit. I remembered before I went on holiday they started a new craze with the dark web. I have a lot of knowledge with computers and technology, so I knew this was a place that you shouldn't really mess around with. The group chat got on to the conversation of the dark web and started talking about all the things they have witnessed, and it didn't actually sound that bad. So I asked what they were searching it on. Plenty replied with the answer Tor, and others came back with application on their iPhones called Onion Browser. I thought about it. This iPhone has been wiped so many times that there would be no information on it from my sister. What have I got to lose? The pressure got to me and I bit the bullet. Went on the App Store and downloaded it. I opened the browser up and headed over to the wiki to show me some sites that I could access. There were the basic sites like black market type D.G guns, drugs, hitman services, and whatnot. I saw that there was another section to the wiki and clicked on it. The websites had minimal information about them, so you didn't really know what you were getting yourself into until you loaded the site up. I closed my eyes, scrolled down a bit, and clicked a random link. As I opened my eyes, I was looking at a website with numerous services on it. It seemed pretty clean until all of a sudden, a chat window popped up on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Hi and welcome, new user. Thank you for coming. I replied saying no problem, thinking nothing of it. I saw another message. We have a show about to start. Would you like to join? At this point, I was oddly curious about this show that the user was talking about. I wonder what it could possibly be. I replied saying, yeah, why not? I was then greeted with a bunch of terms and conditions. The one that struck out was, if you leave before the show has ended, UIP will be blocked from the site and you will never be able to access this site again. Shit, they have my IP? I was worried for a moment, but then thought, I'm at a hotel. What's the spat that could happen? I agreed to the terms and conditions and followed the instructions to the show. I was presented with a hidden part of their site with a blank live feed in the middle. It was counting down to the start of the show. As the counter got to 1 minute till the show begins, a chat box at the bottom appeared. I saw people entering messages in. It was a chat for us to communicate and whilst the show was happening. Nothing was really said. Just a few hellos and how are we's. There wasn't any talk about what the show would feature. The timer got to 0 and the live feed started. A man with an anonymous mask greeted us all. Hello and welcome to the show. If you are new here, then thank you so much for joining us. If you are an existing user, welcome back and thanks for coming. We have something special in store for you today. The guy stepped away from the camera and a light turned on. A girl in a mask, strapped to a chair with only her bra and panties on. I got a bit worried and thought that she was going to be raped. I was wrong. Another chat window popped up with a user by the name of Scarecrow476. The host asked, Scarecrow, please inform us how you want this to go down. He replied, get an angle grinder and cut her stomach apart, then slit her throat. I couldn't believe what I just read. My heart dropped into my stomach. There is no way they are about to kill this fine-looking girl. I was frantic and had no idea what to do. I watched with my eyes watering. The man switched on the angle grinder and started cutting her up. I felt like throwing up. How did I just watch an innocent girl get killed? I typed in the chat, you guys are fucking mental. I hope you get killed in the worst ways imagined. I'm calling the police. This is where I made the worst mistake ever. I was immediately redirected to a blank screen with a chat box. The user was by the name of Site Owner. I knew I fucked up big time. He wrote, you go to the police and you and your whole family will be killed. I replied with, I won't. Just please let me go. I turned the application off and immediately uninstalled the application. I was scared for my life. I had no idea what to do. I returned home to find that everything in life seemed to be normal. I wiped the phone and listed it up online for sale. A guy bought it for his daughter as a gift. He was a nice guy who was about to go on vacation for the weekend to the city. He thanked me ever so kindly and he left. I was ever so relieved. I don't ever have to see that phone again and remember the horrible things I saw and encountered on my holiday away. A week had passed and there was a breaking news segment on the TV that interrupted the show I was watching. A family had been brutally murdered. They were visiting the city for the weekend. They had been uncontactable for the whole week and their immediate family were worried and called the police. The police found them dead at the hotel, brutally chopped up. They had no idea who had done it and wanted witnesses or people with information to step forward. It hit me like a freight train. They got the IMEI for the phone, and once they logged into a form of social media and knew who they were, someone hunted them down and killed them. I felt absolutely horrible. How did I not think of that? I wanted to somehow help the police, but to explain why I was on the dark web and what had occurred would have been too hard. To this day, I have extremely poor sleep and nightmares of the poor man and his daughter being killed. I will never forgive myself for the stupid mistake I made. Be extremely careful what you do, and I advise you never go on the dark web ever. Third story. I tried to be a dark web gamer. 2 games was all it took to make me quit. If you've grown up playing video games, you've probably had to bear your parents telling you in all manner of assorted ways how video games rot you. One more unbelievable than the last, no doubt. If not, then believe me when I say that should the envy of all those who had to deal with what I described above fall upon you, you'd be crushed into a paper-thin pancake, along with the rest of the planet. Gaming really is everywhere now. And despite the wide-ranging opinions of others, I have to say that it is an art form that I truly respect. I was a gamer. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. 2 unreasonably large monitors. Idolizing Ninja. A desk setup that would give anyone with epilepsy an instant seizure. A pair of headphones that looked as though they were meant to protect my ears from the sound of large-scale kiloton explosions. Wasting an entire weekend editing dumbass Fortnite gameplay like it was a would-be Hollywood masterpiece, when in reality getting people to watch it would be hard enough when it was free, let alone if you charged them. I also enjoyed playing some classic games on the side on my dad's old NES and SNES, which in my mind balanced me out by negating the effects of modern media, and this somehow made me a more well-rounded individual, but which in all likelihood didn't do shit. But I digress. You, reader, might be wondering by now why I referred to my gaming self in the past tense. Well, that's because what I mentioned above is all in the past. I am 18 years old as of writing this. I haven't gamed in almost 3 years. So, what do you think happened? Did I get addicted and was shipped off by my parents to some institution to get cleansed? No. Before you jump the gun, I have to stop you right now and just say that no, I did not get scared straight as some parents like to say. I mean, at least not in the traditional sense. The event in question happened around April 2020. Lockdown. I was a stupid-ass 16-year-old, and, to me, lockdown was the blessing from God. I had been constantly nagging him for only he knows how long. I had unlimited free time to game to my heart's content, and I resolved that I would make my gaming channel, with a grand total of 5 subscribers, all of whom I knew in my real life, take off and join the ranks of Ninja and Markiplier, make millions, quit school, and prove to my dumb parents, who I love very much now, how profitable gaming was and how I wasn't just rotting my brain all this time. See? I wasn't exaggerating when I said I was a stupid-ass 16-year-old. So, instead of doing my fucking homework, all of my time was spent screen recording the worst gameplay of Fortnite and PUBG imaginable while my crackling voice commented and screamed every once in a while, editing random and sudden zoom-ins, making unfunny jokes and... Christ, you get the picture. Anyhow, despite 2 months of effort, I had made a grand total of $1 from all of my videos combined and gained only 1 subscriber, whom I also knew in real life. Needless to say, I was disheartened. Was this the moment I decided to stop being a gamer? Was what scared me straight the cruel dream-destroying reality of this world? Nope. I wasn't ready to give up. I still blindly believed in my dream. School had just ended, and I decided that my summer that year would be spent giving gaming my all, again. After all, I had to justify all the Fs I had somehow gotten. Anyway, I remember lying on my bed one random day and thinking hard, quite the challenge for little old 16-year-old me. I knew that to get subscribers I had to do something niche. Something that no one else was really doing, if at all. Something unique that was sure to gain a following, and that no one else could copy. And as I lay there in bed, it suddenly hit me. I should play games that no one else was playing. But by that I don't mean games that were unpopular. I meant games no one else had access to. It was around evening when I logged into the dark web through TR. Now, before I continue, let me explain something about the dark web. 99% of what you've heard about it on whatever creepy-ass animated story or fake creepypasta you've listened to is false. I hope you're not surprised. They're false because they portray the dark web as a minefield that will pretty much fuck you up immediately, a place full of drugs and hitmen and fucked up individuals. While you can find those things on there, you don't just stumble onto them as a first-timer like all these stories talk about. They're right about lists of .onion links, but you can call bullshit when they say they randomly clicked a link and found themselves in a digital hell of some kind. The dark web, if I had to compare it to something, is a lot like 4chan. Just an endless collection of message boards. It's actually pretty boring, because you can't just access the hard drugs and the hitmen and the snuff videos right off the bat. It's like being admitted into a secret society. The ones who are in scope you out after you've shown interest on a message board and determine whether or not they should let you in. They then basically hack your private life for 2 reasons. 1. To make sure you're someone who can be trusted. 2. To use as leverage in case you decide to snitch. Besides that, it's just weirdos talking on forums about whatever bullshit's going through their mind, or you just ordering some weed. Basic stuff, really. Well, I'm no script kiddie, so needless to say, I knew my way pretty well around these parts. I used a non-window operating system, disabled all my scripts in Flash, booted up Tails, had a custom VPN I had someone whip up for me. The whole 100 yards. On the day in question, a hot summer day, I logged into a chat room and posted a query asking about any interesting games I could play should I couldn't find on Steam or on the surface web. The conversation went something like this. Query. Yo, I'm looking for some interesting video games to play. Shit you can only find here in this part of the internet. It wasn't long before I received a message back from some dude with the handlebar John. John? WYM? Me. I've got a fucking game addiction and stuff on Steam no longer floats my boat. I want to know if I can find any niche good stuff here. John. How interesting. Smiley face. I can tell that you are an amateur minus script kiddie, since you don't know what I'm about to tell you, but since you seem to know how to keep yourself safe here. As you know, games are an expression of humanity, as is this corner of the internet. People want to express themselves, but sometimes those expressions are not appreciated on the surface web, so they post their artwork here, where like-minded individuals dwell. Games are no exception. I can send you a link if you want. Me, what you gonna show me some sad Satan shit? I already know about that stupid-ass fucking game, and I don't want my precious PC to get any fucking viruses from something a damn fucking pleb made. John. No. This is the real deal. The community suffered quite a reputation blow from the leak of that game. A real piece of shit made by a piece of shit who had no feel for art. Luckily, its developers have been working hard to cleanse the palates of us, the consumers, from that shit fest. Are you still interested? Me. OFC. And just like that, he sent me a link and logged off. Christ, this link was something I had never seen before. It was a .onion link, but everything before that was just a jumbled mess of letters, words, numbers, digits, random punctuation marks, and a few weird-ass lines that made text distorted. Those who've watched game theory videos on YouTube will know what I'm talking about. It wasn't so much a link as much as it was a paragraph of the strangest collection of text imaginable. I'm sure everyone reading this knows where the fuck this is going. And I am talking in a very literal, no exaggeration manner, absolutely no fucking hesitation. I clicked the link, and just like that I'd unwittingly stepped into hell. Just like the so many unfortunate protagonists of all those fake dark web stories. The website took 3 solid Mississippi seconds to load, and did so just as I was about to opt out. Just thinking about it gives me the impression that damn thing knew I was about to leave and didn't want me to. The screen immediately went black, and just when regret was about to hit me, a text box came up. Welcome, dear player, to our humble website. We appreciate your patronage and hope you will be able to enjoy our extensive collection of free games made by the finest in the industry. Happy playthrough. Sincerely, Mod. The message made me feel uncomfortable. I know, right? Countless times of wafting through the cesspool of humankind, and a polite message is what gets under my skin. Exactly. My parents were asleep. I just drank a can of Monster and a can of Red Bull, and I was given the prospect of entertainment until dawn. And so I took it. I clicked on the search bar, but saw that I couldn't actually search anything. Instead, a list of categories popped up. What were the categories? Murder? Nope. None of those. Every single one was plain as can be. POV. Action. Suspense. That kind of stuff. You could select multiple categories and then hit search. I chose the following combination for my first game. 2D, Detective Mystery, Choice-based. Simple, right? I pressed enter and waited. It seemed to last forever, but finally, the churning wheel of loading disappeared and I was met with a retro home screen. The title read, in all caps, Interrogation of Phineas Wheatley in a strangely well-chosen color palette that didn't make me want to vomit. Needless to say, 16-year-old me was stoked. I thought I just hit a video game jackpot. Fantastic games too niche for the mainstream, all at my fingertips for absolutely free. In case you've been wondering, no, I don't have any footage of these games. My plan was to master their gameplay and then record it so that I wouldn't embarrass myself like I had done before. Yes, I do regret it tremendously, but what are you going to do? Sue me? This game, unlike a standard NES one, allowed me to use my mouse, so with that, I clicked Start. The screen went black, and a new image loaded on my monitor, the one that was logged in the dark web. It looked like a photograph which had been pixelated. Imagine the ending picture of the original Resident Evil 2 on the PS1, which shows what happened to all of the characters after the main storyline concludes, and that will give you a pretty good idea of what I saw. A young man with a poker face seemed to be sitting before a metal table, utterly motionless. Below him was the word, Ask Him. Without warning, 2 black bars with white letters appeared under it. The one on my left read, Why He Called You There, while the one on my right read, How He's Feeling. I was dumbfounded, so I just clicked the option on the right because I was curious. The 2 bars along with Ask Him disappeared, and a large rectangular speech bubble, with an arrow pointed at this Finu's mouth, replaced them. I'm feeling fine, detective. Thank you for showing concern and for arriving so quickly. The large speech bubble disappeared, and the Ask Him prompt came back up again, but now there was only 1 bar under it, the one that said, Why He Called You There. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued at that moment. I'd expected to come across some sort of sad Satan clone or morbid images or whatever shit idiots think would be fitting for the dark web. Instead, I had seemingly stumbled upon a hidden gem. I clicked the bar and the speech bubble came right back up. I know I am going to die, detective. I know he will kill me. I find it only appropriate that I give my last confession before I am taken. The speech box disappeared and 2 bars came up again. The one on the right now read, Who he thinks wants to kill him, and the one on the left read, Why he killed Sam. I was tempted to just choose right, but I just really wanted to get things over with. The following are all the responses I chose with his answers in bold. Why he killed Sam. As you very well know, Sam was my first time. I wanted my first time to be special, so I chose Sam because he was special. It was that simple. How he killed Sam. Come on, detective. Surely you must know already. How he killed Sam. All right. As you wish. I knew Sam lived home alone, so I enacted my perfect murder. The perfect murder isn't about how you kill someone. It's about how you cover it up, and I knew that disposal would be my biggest problem. So I planned things out. I started to work at a taxidermy shop in town with my son, under the guise that I was being a good supporter for him to get some good extracurricular activity for his college applications. Mr. Flank, the owner of the shop, mainly made animal skeletal models and shipped them internationally to institutes of education. You know how he'd extract the bones so cleanly? There are special beetles called dermestid beetles that eat only flesh. People like Mr. Flank have entire containers full of them. They just throw in the carcass part and wait for the beetles to eat it clean. I found a big enough tray and stole some beetle eggs from Mr. Flank. I raised them all on my own patiently. Once they were fully grown, I put an ad on Craigslist for a child skeleton model. After all that was said and done, I just lured Sam down, killed him, and threw him into the vat. A week I waited, and the beetles had done their job. I then shipped the skeleton off, and out of my life for good. Simple as that. I then just burned the beetles along with Sam's clothes, buried his organs out in the forest along with a few worms for good measure, and that was that. It was as if nothing had ever happened. How he got caught. Just thinking about it makes me mad. Turns out you have to use hydrogen peroxide to preserve bones so they don't yellow over time. What happened in my case is that the person who received the skeleton was a medical expert and immediately realized that he'd just received a real child skeleton. The rest, I'm sure you know. A fun experiment that ended up biting me in the ass. The bar on the right disappeared, and the remaining bar now read, "Why he needed to speak to you." This is the response I got when I answered. You see, detective, I'm afraid I've been a tad dishonest with everyone. I'll cut to the chase and just say that little Sam wasn't my first, nor my second, nor my third. He was number 31. Normally, I just cut up the bones and bury them. Sam, on the other hand, was a special case, as I thought it would be a neat idea for me to ship my friends out. But alas, look at where it got me. Where the hell the others are. I'll be frying tomorrow, so I might as well say, I ain't telling you squat, chief. Just wanted you to know. You can doubt me, but you can't doubt all those other missing posters. I am a fair man, however, and I will say that I have mapped all of their coordinates on a special sheet of paper that you can only find in Genesis. That's all, detective. The screen immediately went black, leaving me in total darkness for a moment. When it came back up, I saw that the style of the game had changed. It now looked like Earthbound. I saw a sprite that looked like a stereotypical detective, trench coat and hat and all, standing outside what seemed to be a police station. The palette of my surroundings was a dark blue, and it appeared to be raining heavily. I used my keyboard and found that I could move around by pressing the standard arrow keys. On the far corner of the screen was an arrow that pointed to something beyond it, and I followed it. I found myself being guided through a deserted town, and without warning, the arrow suddenly pointed up. It was a house, a really quaint house. I entered it, and the screen went black for a moment before I found myself inside the house, and I have to say, it was a real pig hut. It gave off the impression of a drug den, a place even pigs wouldn't want to live in. I walked around and found that I could explore the whole house. The arrow was gone at this point, so I didn't have a clue where I was supposed to go next, but as I passed through a hanging portrait, the only decent thing in the whole place, a prompt appeared imploring me to inspect it. I did so, and a pixelated photograph appeared, just like how the game was before. It showed a middle-aged man who I immediately recognized as Phineas. He was standing behind a young man who looked a bit like him, albeit younger. I understood now that I was in his house, and it didn't take me long to realize that the basement was where I needed to go. I found another door, and I was able to enter it. Now, my detective sprite was in a large and dark basement. It was complete and utter silence throughout the entire game, but I only noticed it at this point. I walked around for a bit, but no prompt appeared. But then I noticed a container, a large sprawling one, right in the middle of the room, and it caught my eye. I approached it, and the long-awaited prompt appeared. I pressed it, but then, without warning, another sprite suddenly came out of nowhere. The screen went black, and I found myself in the same style of gameplay as before. I recognized the sprite that appeared before me as Phineas's son. The prompt read, "What are you doing here?" There was only one bar, which is the one I clicked. I came here to find the truth. The screen went black for a second and the image changed. I was now facing the container. The screen went black for another second, and the container was opened in the picture that came up. Even though it was pixelated, the detail almost made me vomit. It was another body, fresh, covered by what I assumed to be beetles. A single white piece of paper lay on it. The screen went black, and I could now see the paper. There were locations and coordinates on the paper, about 5. The screen went black, and I was now facing Phineas's son again, but now he was holding a gun pointed right at me. "I knew Daddy wouldn't go quietly like I told him to," he said, "and while I am sorry for doing this, Mr. Forum, I would be remiss if I didn't reiterate that. Unlike my father, I'm not made for jail. I take after my mother, after all." The screen went orange, and then blank. 2 prompts appeared. Play again, and exit. I clicked exit. I laid back in my chair and let everything that happened sink in. It really was like a high. Like drinking yourself to a stupor on good alcohol instead of the cheap kind. It felt good, but I had this feeling that ruined that particular high for me. This gnawing feeling that I just had to act on if I wanted to relax. I went to my other monitor, the one logged into the surface web, and typed Phineas Wheatley in Google. I just expected some forum links discussing the game, but instead, I got an eye full of news reports and archives about Phineas Wheatley, the Granville Flesh Reaper. I read everything. I read how he'd killed a local and sweet little innocent boy and had nearly gotten away with the perfect crime. I read how the detective who last spoke with him has never been found. And I read how he was survived by one son, Michael Wheatley, who preferred to stay anonymous. My high went from me feeling as though my skull was full of clouds to feeling like my brain had been replaced by a bowling ball. I rubbed my eyes hard and wondered what I should do. Those coordinates were surely fake, I told myself. Just the fan fiction of a serial killer aficionado. That's all there was to it. Like a junkie for a fix, I was hungry for more. My senses were screaming at me, but I refused to listen. 3D, POV, suspense, exploration. I hit enter, and just like before, my screen went black before a menu popped up. Voyeur's POV. The only other thing was a start button, which I also clicked with no hesitation. The screen went dark, and a loading wheel appeared with the words searching for a server below it. I waited, honestly oblivious to what I was about to be thrown into. The spinning loading wheel disappeared, and a view appeared on my monitor. It was a first-person perspective of a backyard at night. At the bottom of the screen, there was a piece of text which read, Quebec, Canada. I am ashamed to admit it, but I really did feel intrigued. Especially by how realistic the graphics looked to me, not just for a free game on the internet, but for a video game in general. I tried moving around with my mouse and keyboard keys, but nothing worked. It was only then that I noticed the bar at the bottom of my screen. A text bar. In that bar, I, without much thought, typed in go to shed. To my surprise, the camera turned and started to move towards the shed in the far corner of the yard. I typed open shed and a gloved hand appeared on the screen and opened it. Enter shed. Take dagger. Exit shed. It felt exhilarating. Much better than Until Dawn. A true update of old text adventure games. The character was doing everything I told him to. Enter house. Go upstairs. The camera followed all of my commands. I was now in a bedroom. A girl, about my age, the one I'd seen in the family pictures on my way up the stairs, lay sleeping before me. She seemed so real on my screen that I had to blink. A prompt came up at that very moment as I sat in my dark room. End it. Right now, all I can do is swear on my honor, my life, and the lives of my entire family that I thought that prompt meant to end the game. That, and that only, is why I typed yes. The power plug of my monitor was pulled not a moment after I witnessed the gloved hand plunge the knife deep into the chest of that girl. The last thing I saw on that damned thing were her eyes fluttering open in an instant. Like a dam, they held back a contagious fear that no one, certainly not her, should ever feel. On the floor I collapsed, and on the floor I cried, and on the floor I slept. The last thought that went through my head before I lost consciousness was, it's just a game, but my nightmares certainly didn't want me to believe that. I awoke that morning, about 4 hours later, and I barely had the strength to stand up again. Seeing my monitors made tears come to my eyes again, and I still didn't know why. I tried to calm down and thought I knew the perfect way to do so. I turned on my other monitor and hopped on Google again. My previous search related to Phineas Wheatley inflicting a whole other wave of disgust back. I just searched Quebec, Canada, and went in news. And what do you think I found as the top story? A news article that featured the house I had seen at night in that game, only now it was covered by police tape. And one of the family photographs I had seen inside that house while climbing the long staircase glared at me from behind my screen. The girl, smiling brightly in the photograph, had been killed, survived only by the others in that picture. I know I'm next if I report this. I know they know everything they need to know about me. All I can do for now, before I turn in the evidence, is to be a son that my parents can be proud of, so that when I am taken, I can at least leave knowing that their time raising me had not been wasted. To you, you know who you are. Reading this, it has already been done. There's nothing you can do. Your operation will receive quite the blow, much like Playpen. I'm ready for you. Just please don't go after my loved ones. They have nothing to do with this. If you can promise me that, I'll go quietly. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. Love, James. Fourth story. Someone leaked my personal details onto the dark web. Now everyone I love is being hunted down. To be perfectly honest, I was never a fan of all that dark web stuff. I mean, it's interesting enough and all, but I never had the patience, nor technological know-how to figure out how to use it productively. In fact, my whole family seems to be missing the technology genes. We've struggled with everything from computers and phones to toasters and microwaves. My mother even got scammed a few times before she passed away. Luckily, she never lost anything more than a few $100s, but it still stung. Francis, my best friend, on the hand was a tech whiz. He loved that stuff and never shied away from looking up the most bizarre and horrific things online. If he could reach it, he would. He even tried to set up a Tor browser on my computer once, but I just ended up ignoring it, somehow deleting the shortcut and losing track of where he placed it. Still, he'd periodically send me pictures from Alphabi, which is apparently some dark web black market. It was mostly strange or illegal products. Other times he'd find impossible, random conspiracies. It was usually weird and funny stuff. But sometimes he'd send me darker things, pictures of murder victims, videos displaying horrific car crashes and other accidents. It made me appreciate our friendship a little less, but Francis was all around a good guy, albeit an eccentric one. We stuck together. On the rare occasion that he crossed a line, I just politely asked him to stop, which would work for a while. Then, after the shock had worn off, he'd send more stuff he found on the dark web. It would always start off so innocent, with funny pictures or forums, but it inevitably got darker, escalating to more disturbing areas of the dark web. The most horrific thing he ever sent me, however, was little more than a picture of myself, found randomly out there in the sea of onion sites. It was just a screenshot he'd sent, with a picture of myself and some text lined up next to it. In a way, it looked like a profile for some sort of social media page, but it was plain, simple, and seemingly pointless. It contained my name, birth date, address, everything. I'm so sorry, Tyler. I don't know how they found you. Francis sent me as a message. What do you mean? Who are they? What's going on? I asked back in a flood of questions. Did you open any suspicious emails? Or sign up for something weird online? I tried to think back. I couldn't remember anything that stood out, but in my business, I dealt with hundreds of mails each day from various clients. I don't know. Francis, what's going on? Your name is on A.L.I.C.I.A listed as a participant. What the hell is Alicia? A red room. It was supposed to be closed down, but it's back. I chuckled at his remark. I wasn't much of a tech genius, but even I knew red rooms were little more than myths told to scared teenagers and gullible adults. Come on, man, this is a joke, right? Red rooms aren't real. I think this one is. After that, I'd reached the maximum amount of Francis antics that I could handle. I told him to back off and leave me alone for a bit, which had become somewhat of a routine between the two of us. Still, I took his warning serious enough to dial the non-emergency line to the police. I explained the situation, but they didn't take it seriously. After all, my personal information leaked on a website shouldn't have been much of a threat. They just told me to call back if anything more substantial happened. I went about my week, and nothing came of the mysterious website. Francis even admitted he might have overreacted a tad. Truth is, most people have their email information leaked somewhere online. Even passwords and personal details are readily available all over the place. But for most people, that's just useless information. Then about a month later, I received a letter in my mail. It didn't have a return address, nor any stamps. It was just a plain envelope put in my mailbox. The only way I could have received it would be if someone had personally delivered it themselves. I opened the letter to find a perfectly black paper inside, with little more than a single line of text in the middle. It was just a string of random numbers and letters, ending in .onion to mark the fact that it was a dark web page. At first, I didn't even connect the dots. I had long since forgotten the fact that all my personal details had been leaked. Instead of just throwing it away as I should have, I decided to contact Francis. He was more intrigued than worried, showing up about 15 minutes later to help me connect to the website. He only needed about a second to dig up the Tor browser and input the Onion link I'd received. Shit, he mumbled as the title of the site popped up. It was ALICA. That's the site that is my name? I asked to be sure. Francis nodded. A few seconds passed as the site loaded, before a black video player popped up in the center of the screen. It didn't have a timer or anything to let us know the duration of the video. Instead, it just had a play button. Francis clicked it, and though it was too dark to see what was going on, I could hear something in the background. "Turn up the volume," I said. Francis did as commanded, and we were greeted with the muffled sounds of someone struggling. It was quiet, just loud enough to make out what was going on without understanding the hidden context. Then it got brighter, just enough to make out the walls and ceiling of a small room. In the center lay a man tied to a bed with chains, his face obscured by a bag pulled over his head. "What the hell is this?" I asked. It's a red room." "Well, turn that shit off." Francis was reluctant to oblige, whether it be due to curiosity or shock. Before I could reach out and turn it off myself, a man entered the picture. He was naked, with his bare chest covered in old scars and fresh blood. He pulled the mask off the tied-up man, and I let out a loud gasp. "What is it?" Francis said. I pointed a trembling finger towards the screen. That's Mr. Dawson, my boss." "You sure?" I nodded. "Is this a live stream or something?" "No, I don't think so. As far as I know, you can't live stream on the dark web. It has to be a recording." I wanted so desperately to just turn it off and call the police, but we were both frozen in our seats. The naked man pulled out a knife from a bag on the ground and started peeling off pieces of skin from Dawson's leg. He tried to scream in agony, but he was gagged, left unable to move or even call for help. Little by little, the man cut off pieces of flesh from Dawson, moving his way from the legs to the torso. I can't say exactly how long the video went on for. It skipped minutes at the time, showing Dawson at progressively more mutilated stages of the torture. It wasn't until his skin had been almost completely removed before he finally lost consciousness. I threw up, finally snapping back to reality as the screen turned black. Francis sat speechless in his chair, but what could we do? Dawson had to have been dead by the time we even opened the link. Naturally, I called the police and gave them all the information about the website that I had. But by the time the police got around to checking it out, the video was gone. Once it had been viewed, it was simply removed. They believed us, though, saying that they'd forward the information to the appropriate sources, which turned out to be the FBI. There was little more I could do. Without solid evidence that my boss had actually died, he was just reported missing while the investigation went on. I was questioned by various officers and an FBI agent a couple of times, but that was about it. A year passed, and life went on. My place of work just hired a new manager, and Dawson's disappearance remained an unsolved mystery. I fully believed that would be the end of it. I thought the horrors I'd witnessed would be a one-time occurrence, that I would be fine. During that time, I also drifted away from Francis. We weren't even able to look each other in the eyes anymore, not after what we'd seen together. Then everything changed as I got another letter in the mail. It was unmarked without an address, just like before. That time, however, I didn't hesitate to call the police. I already knew what would be inside, and I wasn't about to ruin another piece of evidence. The police redirected me to the responsible FBI agent who was working the case. He was quick to act, coming to pick me up within the hour alongside 3 armed agents. "Mr. Larkin, I'm Agent Vance. We need to come with us," he said before they rushed me inside the car as if my life depended on it. They took me to an office building in the middle of the city and made me wait in an interrogation room while they checked out the evidence. I sat there with a cup of water, 100 thoughts running through my mind. An hour passed before Agent Vance came to check up on me. He looked upset, but had put on a brave face to talk to me. "We checked out the link in your envelope and found a video like the one you described last time. We've taken some still shots of the footage, and I'd like it if you could help identify the victim." I shuddered at the thought, but agreed to help. Vance guided me into a room full of computers. A group of office workers sat in front of one, staring at a picture, trying to figure out who the person was. They didn't need to analyze it any further, because I knew exactly who it was. Francis. He looked absolutely horrified, the still picture showing him clearly alive. But for how long that would last, I didn't know. "Is he?" I began to ask. "He didn't survive." "I'm sorry," Vance interjected, knowing what I wanted to ask. "How did he die?" "It's better you don't know the details. But we're going to catch this guy. I promise you that much." Again, we went over each and every detail. They promised over and over they'd do everything in their power to chase down the people doing it, and to keep me safe. But as weeks turned to months, no culprit was caught. Eventually, I stopped working. Instead, I just hid at home, afraid that anyone remotely close to me might be next. I didn't have much in terms of family. No siblings, and my parents had long since died. I suppose that made me an easy target for the runners of the Red Room. Despite the FBI's best efforts, the letters kept coming with random intervals. My ex-girlfriend was the next victim. Though we'd broken up a few years earlier, we'd remained friendly. Again, I got the link to a video of her brutal murder. I just forwarded it to the FBI, unable to stomach another horror show. Then they took one of my old coworkers. One by one, they killed the people I knew and loved, and I could do nothing to stop it. I couldn't even contact the culprits and ask what the hell they wanted from me. But then it hit me. I was being tortured, and while it wasn't physical like the others, it was still mental torture. Like the horrors they'd committed on my friends, the pain wouldn't end until I was dead. Maybe that's what they so desperately wanted, for me to kill myself. Maybe it was some sort of sick game to see how long I could last. I sat down in front of my computer, ready to give up. If there was even the slightest chance that it would save lives, I had to do it. I looked up the best ways to do it, but in the end, I decided to go for the gun. I picked it up, pressed it against my temple. I felt like hours passed, but I just couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger without letting every possible scenario run through my mind. Then the phone rang, and I almost dropped the gun in shock. I glanced at my phone to see a call incoming from an unknown number. "Hello?" I asked as I picked it up. "Not like that," a twisted, robotic voice said from the other end. "Not like what?" "Who are you?" "You need to record it properly," the voice continued. Whoever they were using some kind of voice-changing software to make them unrecognizable. "How did you?" I began, before noticing the camera on my computer. Of course they'd been watching. I didn't even need to ask. I just stared at the camera, and the mysterious person on the other end confirmed. "That's right. We've been watching you." I felt my heart drop. "So all I have to do is to kill myself, and the suffering ends?" "Yes. Face the camera when you do it. You have 15 minutes, or the next person will be taken. I don't have any other options. I can't let anyone else die because of me. I just pray that once I'm gone, it'll finally stop."